when I was a young guy, I used to, playing footy, I used to drive to training with John Money and Peter Louie, who were the Parramatta coaches at the time, first reserve grade. I'm in the car one day driving, and they used to just sit and talk, and I used to just sit in the back and shut up and say nothing and listen. And they were talking about this young player, that Brad Levy, who was the development officer at Parramatta at the time, wanted to sign. And he wanted to pay $30,000 for him, which at the time was bottom end of first grade money.
Right.
And this player would have been 17 at the time. And I remember Manny going, mate, you can't pay that for a kid. $30,000, you can't pay it. And they had the discussion the whole way to training. And I just sat in back and listened. The young player I knew who the young player was. It was Brad Fittler.
Wow.
Would have been the cheapest $30,000 Parramatta ever spent.
Yeah, wow. So Parramatta were talking about Freddie at $30,000.
Parramatta, Brad Levy, the development officer back then, he used to do a lot of recruitment. And so all the young players wanted to sign a young kid at Penrith called Brad Fittler. He wanted to offer him $30,000. But at the time, it was, and it's it's economy of scale thing here. At the time, that was lower end of first grade money, $30,000. And I remember
So that's like giving a kid, what, $300,000 now?
Perhaps, Geordie, Gordy, it'd be something like that. So it's like saying to
it's a big investment.
It's a big investment, and look, in the end, we all know what Brad Fittler became, and it would have been cheap as chips in hindsight. But having said that, that's the decision. I dare say the Cowboys had a very similar discussion when they had this young kid called Ponga, and decided what do we do here, and kick out as well. Like, it's easy to identify talent. What's hard is actually to justify the price and get the price right. And in some respects, clubs let players go, and it was the right decision at the time. And the player then goes and kicks, and you think, okay, well, in hindsight, I would have made another decision. But for everyone you let go that becomes a Kalen Ponga, there's probably 4 you let go that are now playing. Well, they're playing State Cup.
All right, we need to take a break quickly, Hoops.
There's a risk involved, isn't there, Kenny? Like, there is an element of risk. When you just touched on that great Freddie anecdote. And, if you look back, I think it was young Jaden Nikorima a few years ago, Gordy signed with the Roosters, and they paid big dough at the time, and he wasn't able to kick on. So there are often, for all of the Greg Inglis's and the superstars, the Sonny Bill Williams that come through, there are also kids that don't quite make it. I think that was how this conversation opened up.
Yeah, and we kind of have
Anthony Maroon. Anthony Maroon was a young kid.
Well, it's actually you raise a very good point there, Gordon, because I've just had a text message from Matt from Collaroy, and he said there was a young Jamie Lee Curtis lookalike who played for Waterloo in the early 90s. He had everything except talent and toughness.
But he did have plenty of tomorrows.
I don't know who it is.
Nice to have you listening, Matt. I tell you what, Jamie Lee Curtis in some of those films.
Yeah.
If I looked like Jamie Lee Curtis, I'd never leave the house.